Morning, Jeff. So, with the recent blessing by the SEC for crypto ETFs, wanted to get your take on that and maybe some historical parallels for context.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the SEC helps legitimize the asset class, frankly, in dire need of that, given, some of the frauds and charlatans that were out in full force with it. I do think that there are some similarities to this announcement and the approval of the gold ETF, the GLD, if you will, which was really the advent of physical gold in an ETF format. Keep in mind that before 2004, buying and selling gold, there was a lot of friction, right? Both physical storage and even the commissions. I mean, it was probably close to a 20% cost round trip by the time you bought and sold a, physical lot of gold. And, there were gold coins and a lot of different things that are out there. But the public generally didn't participate. Pension funds generally didn't participate in a meaningful way, again, outside of those coins. So the advent of the ETF, the GLD, actually brought the ability to own gold into the mainstream. And I've, frankly owned gold through the GLD off and on for better part of almost 20 years now. So I do think something similar is happening for the crypto ETF and taking kind of this fringe security and legitimizing it. But importantly, it reduces that friction of ownership, and I think will increase the size or the pool of investors or potential investors into crypto. One thing I think is important, if we just take a look at this chart, you'll see two lines here. The red line is essentially gold up into the point of that vertical line. So the performance of gold to that vertical line, which was the release of GLD or that ETF. Now, keep in mind that gold had been trading in a range of roughly 20 years with a high of about 400 and a low of somewhere around 200. So it was just this huge rage-bound kind of dead asset. And it really started to spark itself as this GLD came to the fore. Now, I was at Lehman Brothers at the time, and I remember, there was a conversation about whether or not this was the typical IPO, which is, Wall Street has this great propensity to give people what they want or what they demand at kind of the worst time, right? They kind of bring it upon themselves. And so the idea was that, GLD being released right at the point at the high end of the range, and you're going to have this continuation of this trading range. Clearly, that was not the case in the long term. Actually, gold was on the verge of a breakout that was going to extend the next decade and really quintuple in price. But I think what's interesting from this chart is you'll see that when GLD was released, gold went into a consolidation for about the next 10 months. So it was, a lot of fanfare, but not a lot of returns. And so we overlaid Bitcoin in blue here to show you what something similar would look like. Now, volatility adjusted, they're not the same, right? So about a 5-7% decline or drawdown in gold equates to something that's closer to 20-25% for Bitcoin. So we might end up with this consolidation in Bitcoin here over the next, or for much of 2024, called the next 6 to 12 months. But I do think it is an important step to the legitimization of the asset. I think the regulations are going to be important to, again, give people more confidence that it's not just a bunch of charlatans and promoters that are involved. And the other thing that tends to happen is volatility tends to go down or be suppressed as you increase the population of investors in the pool. So I think Bitcoin will still prove to be volatile, but hopefully what ends up happening is you get a little bit more stability to it. So in the near term, I actually think there's a little bit of what we call a Jesse Livermore moment. You take what appears to be really good news and you actually use it contrarianly, but within the context of what is probably long-term, a pretty good trend and development for Bitcoin. And therefore, given this uptrend, we're going to use the consolidations or corrections that we see as an opportunity to gain and increase exposure in Bitcoin. How's that for a long answer, Steve?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Thank you, as always, Jeff, for your insight.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks.